Rome, the Colosseum, the 17th day of September, 73 years after Christ. Beneath the arena floor, in chambers that tourists will never see even 2,000 years later, a woman named Livia sits chained to a stone wall. She is 19 years old. 3 hours ago, she watched her two brothers die in the arena above. She heard the crowd roar as gladiators cut them down. She felt the vibrations through the stone as 50,000 Romans celebrated the destruction of her family. Her brothers were Dacian nobility, captured during the recent campaigns along the Danube. They were educated men who spoke Greek and Latin, who had negotiated trade agreements and hosted diplomatic dinners. They died badly. One took 7 minutes to bleed out after a trident pierced his abdomen. The other survived long enough to beg for mercy that never came. The crowd loved every second. Livia is still wearing the silk dress she wore when Romans captured her family's compound 6 weeks ago. The silk is filthy now, stained with things she tries not to think about. But the guards have kept her in this dress deliberately. The contrast matters. Silk and chains, nobility and captivity, what she was and what she has become. She can hear footsteps approaching through the underground corridors. Multiple sets, heavy boots on stone, men's voices discussing something in Latin that she only partially understands. The tone is casual. They are not discussing anything important, just routine business. Standard procedures for a normal day at the Colosseum. One of the guards stops outside her cell. The key turns in the lock. The door opens. 3 men enter. One wears the armor of an arena official. The other 2 are dressed in the leather and bronze of gladiators who have just fought. One of them has blood on his shoulder, fresh from whatever contest he just won. The official holds a wax tablet. He reads from it in the monotone of someone performing administrative tasks. Livia of Dacia, captive number 417, Category 3 prisoner. Assigned under the provision of Lex Victorum to the gladiator Gaius Valerius Maximus as reward for victory in the afternoon contests. He makes a mark on the tablet. The transaction is recorded. Everything in Rome is recorded. The bureaucracy of empire extends even to this underground chamber where a 19-year-old woman sits chained and terrified. The gladiator called Gaius Valerius Maximus steps forward. He is perhaps 30 years old, scarred extensively, with the build of someone who has survived the arena long enough to become valuable property. His eyes are empty of everything except exhaustion. The official departs. The door closes. The lock turns. Livia and the gladiator are alone in a cell designed for exactly this purpose. There are iron rings set into the walls at specific heights. A wooden bench positioned with calculated precision. Drainage channels cut into the stone floor. This room has been used before, many times. The architecture makes that clear, but here is what makes this moment remarkable. What happened next is documented in sources that Rome tried very hard to suppress. Because what occurred in these chambers beneath the Colosseum was not random violence. It was systematic policy, a deliberately designed reward structure that transformed female prisoners into instruments of a brutal entertainment machine. And occasionally, when individuals like Gaius Valerius Maximus made choices that deviated from expected behavior, the system's true nature became visible in ways that administrative records could not completely hide. Tonight, you will discover what Rome built beneath the greatest amphitheater in the ancient world. The infrastructure designed to process captured women through stages of systematic humiliation, the legal frameworks that made exploitation official policy, the reward system that gave victorious gladiators ownership over female prisoners as payment for their service, the Senate debates that occurred when the practice became too visible to ignore, the individual stories of women whose names survived in sources that historians long dismissed as exaggeration, the archaeological evidence discovered only in the past 2 decades that confirms what the texts described. This is not sensationalized fantasy. This is documented Roman practice. The sources exist in multiple independent accounts. The physical evidence survives in spaces beneath the Colosseum that were sealed for centuries. The legal codes describe procedures in bureaucratic detail. The system was real. The women were real. What happened to them was worse than the deaths their brothers suffered in the sand above. Before we continue, understand that what follows examines systematic exploitation with historical accuracy. Rome constructed elaborate mechanisms for controlling and destroying captured populations. The genius of Roman administration extended to evil as efficiently as it extended to engineering. The horror lies not in chaos, but in order. Not in breakdown of civilization, but in civilization functioning exactly as designed. Stay until the end, because what you'll learn will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about Roman civilization. Like the video and subscribe to the channel to support a fellow history enthusiast, and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I'm always amazed by how far these stories reach. Now, let us return to that cell beneath the Colosseum and discover how Livia came to be chained there. But first, we must understand the arena itself and why Rome built such elaborate infrastructure for spectacle that combined entertainment with systematic cruelty. The Flavian Amphitheater, known today as the Colosseum, opened in 80 years after the Common Era. It took nearly a decade to build. It could hold between 50,000 and 80,000 spectators, depending on how tightly they packed the seating. It featured sophisticated engineering, including underground chambers, mechanical elevators for raising animals and prisoners to arena level, and hydraulic systems for creating elaborate water displays. The structure represented the pinnacle of Roman architectural achievement. Multiple levels of arcades, precisely calculated sightlines ensuring every spectator could view the arena floor. Ventilation systems that managed airflow for tens of thousands of bodies packed together under Mediterranean sun. Awning mechanisms that provided shade. The engineering was brilliant, but the Colosseum was not primarily an engineering project. It was a political tool designed to serve specific functions within Roman imperial power structure. The arena provided free entertainment that kept urban populations satisfied despite overcrowding, poverty, and limited economic opportunity for common citizens. Bread and circuses was official policy. Keep them fed, keep them entertained, keep them from questioning the fundamental injustices built into Roman society. The games served this function explicitly. More importantly, the arena demonstrated Roman power through systematic violence. Every execution, every gladiatorial combat, every animal hunt reinforced the message that Rome was invincible. That resistance was futile, that enemies of the state would be destroyed publicly and theatrically. The spectacle was the point. Contemporary accounts describe the atmosphere. Pliny the Younger wrote about attending games where the smell of blood mixed with the scent of saffron sprinkled on the sand to mask the odor of death. Seneca described the roar of crowds as overwhelming, like thunder that shook the stone. Martial catalogued the variety of deaths displayed, from criminals burned alive while dressed as mythological figures, to elaborate reenactments of famous battles where prisoners played the roles of defeated enemies who would actually die during the performance. The arena was theater where the script called for real deaths. Entertainment where the tragedy was literal. Art where the medium was human suffering. Into this system came prisoners of war. Rome's continuous military expansion generated steady supply of captives from conquered territories, Germanic tribes, Dacians, Britons, North Africans. Anyone who resisted Roman authority and survived their defeat could be transported to Rome and displayed in the arena as living proof of Roman superiority. Male prisoners typically faced 3 possible fates: death in the arena through execution or forced combat, sale into slavery for labor in mines, farms, or construction projects, or occasionally, if they possessed valuable skills, incorporation into Roman households as educated slaves. Female prisoners faced different calculations, their value derived from different functions. Labor was one consideration. Domestic service was another. But there was a third category that official sources describe with careful euphemisms and that modern historians have only recently begun examining honestly. The category was political humiliation rendered sexual, the systematic use of captured women to demonstrate not just military victory, but the complete destruction of enemy societies. What Roman sources called the demonstration of conquest through the ultimate subjugation of enemy populations. This was policy. It appeared in Senate debates. It was codified in law. It was administered through official channels. It was not the random violence of individual soldiers during battle, but the systematic exploitation of captive populations through institutional mechanisms that the empire constructed and maintained. The practice operated under various names in different periods. Victoria Carnalis, Praemium Sanguinis, Ius Victoriae. The terminology varied, but the essential practice remained consistent. Victorious gladiators received rewards for their service. One category of reward was access to female prisoners held in the underground chambers beneath the arena. This created a self-reinforcing system. Gladiators fought more viciously for greater rewards. Prisoners provided entertainment value through their presence. The crowd witnessed both the combat and its aftermath, knowing what awaited the women displayed in chains around the arena during victory celebrations. The entire mechanism served to demonstrate Roman power through every possible avenue. The Dacian campaigns of the 70s provided the historical context for Livia's captivity. The Emperor Vespasian was consolidating power after the chaos of the Year of 4 Emperors. He needed military victories to legitimize his rule. The Dacian territories along the Danube offered opportunities for conquest that would both secure borders and provide the captives needed for triumphant games in Rome. The campaigns were brutal. Roman legions burned villages. They destroyed agricultural infrastructure. They captured elite families specifically to display them in triumph. The goal was not just military victory, but the complete psychological defeat of populations that might otherwise organize future resistance. Livia's family was targeted deliberately. Her father had negotiated with Rome during earlier diplomatic contacts. He spoke Latin. He understood Roman politics. He represented the educated Dacian elite that could potentially lead organized opposition. Capturing his family served strategic purposes beyond simple revenge. It demonstrated that even those who tried to work within Roman systems would be destroyed if Rome chose to expand into their territories. The capture itself was documented in official dispatches. A cohort commander named Marcus Antonius Primus sent reports to Rome describing the seizure of noble families during the Dacian campaign. His letters, preserved in collections of military correspondence, mention specific captives by name. Livia appears in one dispatch as daughter of the Dacian nobleman Decebalus, age approximately 18, suitable for display in triumph. She was property before she ever reached Rome. The dispatch did not describe her as a person, but as an asset with specific use value. The classification determined everything that followed. To understand what happened to Livia, you must first grasp the political calculations that Roman leadership made when deciding how to display and dispose of captured populations. The games were never merely entertainment. They were state propaganda operating on multiple levels simultaneously. Religious festival, political theater, demonstration of imperial power, tool for managing urban populations, revenue generator through associated gambling and commerce. Every aspect served deliberate purposes. The treatment of prisoners was particularly calculated. Rome did not simply execute enemies. Rome transformed enemy defeat into spectacle that reinforced specific political messages. When criminals faced execution in the arena, they died in ways that